want to go straight to Kellyanne Conway, Trump's campaign manager, with her reaction to all of this. Kellyanne, good to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
Pretty amazing news. You know, the trend is on your side. When you look at these polls, you see him closing the gap. The big question is, can he continue to do so in the next 11 days? Is it going to make enough of a difference? A lot of people have talked about the potential for an October surprise. Is this it, do you think? Is this going to be the key to really sending him into the White House?
Well, whatever FBI Director Comey and the FBI has decided in reopening this investigation into Hillary Clinton's private server and emails has nothing to do with our campaign insofar as we learn about the news when everybody else does. And regardless of what he's doing, I think that we're just taking the case directly to the people, as you just saw Mr. Trump do there in Manchester, and he'll have 2 other state stops today. I think what the reopening does is it reminds everyone of a few things, that there's not a great deal of transparency and accountability throughout Hillary Clinton's career, including when she was Secretary of State and including all through the original FBI investigation. I think this close to the election, Trish, it suggests that there has to be something of significance. I do know from other reporting, again, just reading what you're reading, hearing what you're hearing, that these particular emails or the content as to why he would reopen the investigation is unrelated to WikiLeaks or Russia. It's got to do with something else and maybe someone else's email.
But
so for someone who has tried really hard to say
going on simultaneously that it led them to say, okay, now it's time to, because you know, one of the things I'm wondering, Kellyanne, is why now? I mean, why couldn't they have made sure that they did their due diligence the first time around? Here we are 11 days before the election.
Well, there was a tremendous public backlash, as you know, and it wasn't always from Republicans only. A lot of independents. This is what they don't like about Washington. They don't like about the rigged, corrupt system, when they feel that you've got one set of rules for Hillary Clinton and the other for the rest of us. And you see these reports like General Cartwright very recently is facing 5 years jail time and a prison sentence and $250,000 fine for lying to the FBI one time. And really, in that case, he was confirming information already reported by 2 New York Times reporters, and he said he lied to try to protect national security. The fact is that you've got Hillary Clinton here lying many times, it would appear. But in reopening the investigation, you're right. It's nothing short of remarkable given the timing.
Let me just jump in, because you said something interesting and important. In other words, there's one set of rules for regular folks, and there's a whole other set of rules for the Clintons. With that thesis in mind, do you think they can wrap this up in 11 days? I mean, if she were to win, and then suddenly the FBI comes forward and says, you know, that they're indicting her, criminally indicting her, I don't even know what happens then. It really changes the entire game.
Well, I don't know what the FBI's timeline will be. Generally speaking, investigations like this take much longer than 11 days. But the specter of further problems for her legally will hang over her between now and Election Day, Trish. That's really the upshot of this information, in my view.
We've got her, she's going to be speaking in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, any minute now. How do you think she's going to respond to this? There's a live picture. She has yet to come to the stage. She was supposed to be there at 2:15. I imagine she's scrambling a bit with her aides, trying to figure out what the heck to say to this. What do you anticipate?
I would think so. I understand her camp's initial response was, quote, no idea, meaning we don't know why this was reopened or based on what information or evidence. Maybe she'll stick to that. Maybe she'll ignore it. She's pretty good at ignoring things that are actually important to the American people, so this would just be another example of that. But look, this is already her biggest problem in closing the deal and becoming president of the United States. People have such a reluctance to say, good Lord, how can I say I'm for change and disrupting the status quo in Washington, D.C., and I'm going to vote for Hillary Clinton, who's the consummate insider, a queen of the rigged, corrupt system. You see, just in the last day or two, you see all this information about the team around them trying very hard to enrich Bill Clinton, making sure the Clinton Foundation, Bill Clinton Inc., as one of them called it, not my words, theirs, was flush with cash, was always grifting around for another opportunity. Kimberly Strassel's excellent Wall Street Journal piece today about grifters in chief, how they would form a government. It would be based on cronyism and special favors and follow the money. And I don't think reopening this investigation helps her. I also want to make 2 other points about it. Let's remind everybody that the FBI is not the RNC, and it is certainly not the vast right-wing conspiracy. It is a government agency that heretofore refused to prosecute, you refused to indict Hillary Clinton, even while finding that she acted recklessly and carelessly on any number of occasions, did things she was not supposed to do and was told she was not supposed to do.
So in other words, this makes it that much more complicated for her, right?
It does.
She can't say
these
are just the Republicans.
That's right. And, you know, people say, oh, the Trump campaign is gleeful today. No, we're not. We're not gleeful that somebody would be investigated, but we do know that there are serious, concerns within the American public.
I mean, come on. At least he seemed a little bit gleeful when he went out to the stage there and greeted his supporters who were very gleeful themselves. Let me ask you about this. $10 million is what he is contributing, he said, to his campaign now. He's writing himself a big check. What are you going to do with it?
That's a lot of money, and we're so happy. I mean, the best pieces of news today were the tightening in the polls, as you pointed out, which we've seen internally as well, and Mr. Trump's very generous contribution to his campaign of $10 million. That money, Trish, will go toward a $25 million ad-buy program that we already have in hand, and it will go into the swing states. Hillary Clinton's been advertising for, it seems like forever, a lot of it so negative against Donald Trump, politics of personal destruction kind of ads. We're going to go out there and start to and finish in our closing arguments communicating with people directly, including through paid ads. But I will say our greatest assets are still putting Mr. Trump and Governor Pence on the road. You would not believe their crushing barnstorming schedule in the swing states in the next 11 days.
Why do you think she's not campaigning much this week? I don't believe she has any events this weekend. She's got two. We're waiting on her, of course, there in Cedar Rapids today. Do you think maybe she got a heads up that this was coming and wanted to scale back, or is there something else going on?
No, she doesn't campaign as much as we do. I mean, this is the tale of two campaigns and candidates in that way. Hers is much more conventional, much more get the $1 billion, flood the airwaves. You saw the reports in Washington Free Beacon earlier this week that the Clinton camp spent, I think it was 24 focus groups and 13,000 interviews 2 years before the elections. She's been trying to find her voice for 3 decades. What's her core? How should she run? So I'm not sure they really have a plan B in place. Trish, that's really the untold story here, the wild card. I'm not sure the Clinton camp has a plan B in place.
Let me ask you,
if in fact the polls continue to tighten and people start to say, wow, another cloud of investigation.
You are a former pollster yourself, or still a pollster.
Current pollster.
Yes, and when you look
Forever pollster.
When you look at how polls are conducted today, Kellyanne, versus say 8 years ago, I mean, gosh, a lot of people I know, they don't even have landline phones today. It's changed dramatically. Donald Trump keeps pointing to dirty polls and saying, you know, none of these are really entirely accurate. How has the industry changed so much that it might actually, in your view, favor him?
Well, a couple different things wrapped up in that question. One is our polls certainly have a high number of cell phones, and those that don't, I think, are maybe a little less reliable because of what you said. So many Americans don't have landlines, or really, if they do have landlines, tend to rely upon their cell phone, their mobile devices quite a bit. But I think what Donald Trump is also pointing out is something I've been talking about for months, even though I've been attacked for doing it, which is the undercover Trump voter. And now I see everybody from Democratic Governor Ed Rendell talking about the undercover Trump voter. There were articles on CNBC.com, CNN.com, not exactly, you know, publications or authors that would be favorable toward our candidacy, saying somehow, New York Times reporter saying somehow that we're probably undercounting Trump's support. And the reason is, you know, some people just don't admit that they're going to go against what they've done in the past. These are registered Democrats. If you're a coal miner, if you're a welder, if you're a, you know, if you're a union guy, a private union guy in Western Pennsylvania or Ohio, and you voted Democrat for most of your adult life, and you like Donald Trump's message about renegotiating bad trade deals and about creating 25 million jobs over 10 years, and you don't like Hillary Clinton promising to put the coal industry out of work, then you're going to go against your political proclivities and your political past behavior
you don't want to admit
in voting for Donald Trump. Sorry?
You don't want to admit it. I mean, if you're one of them necessarily. You don't necessarily
well, and it's not that it's some kind of hush
friends.
campaign. It's not that people are embarrassed. It's different than that. Some people characterize it as such. It's not that they're embarrassed. It's that it goes against who they are. And they're a little reluctant to tell other people within work or within the family,
really?
within their
I think some people are embarrassed, Kellyanne. I mean, I meet a lot of different people through my travels from a lot of different walks of life, and you know, they'll ask me about their lives. As soon as they figure out that, you know, I'm not one way or the other, and I'm not going to judge them necessarily. Oftentimes, you find out, yeah, they actually really do like Trump, and they're going to support him, and they're going to vote for him, but they are very reluctant to say that for fear that maybe I'll come down on them for some reason.
Right. No, I was saying, I think we're saying the same thing. And by the way, internally, we have found a way to survey those voters that I think they're not being surveyed by everyone on the outside, because I think folks are using listed sample a great deal. And if you use listed sample from past elections, you're basically saying who voted for Mitt Romney, who voted for Barack Obama, and then who maybe registered independent or unaffiliated, and how did they lean in each of those elections. That would totally miss the cultural zeitgeist and political phenomenon that is Donald Trump. And we have found a way internally, I'd be happy to talk to you about it after the election, to really find these undercover Trump voters. It's not 10 or 15% in any of these states or nationwide, but it doesn't need to be. I don't think there are hidden Hillary Clinton voters, because look at her ceiling. She's got this persistent 46% ceiling in most places, in most statewide polls, including in states that President Obama carried twice with well over 50% of the vote, where we're now winning or within the margin of error. Florida, Ohio, certainly Iowa, and North Carolina, which President Obama carried the first time, New Hampshire, even Colorado. So we're looking at these polls where Mr. Trump is where Hillary Clinton is way underperforming Barack Obama, and the FBI investigation notwithstanding, what in the world are these undecided voters going to learn about Hillary Clinton in the next 11 days that makes them say, you know what, you're right, I think she's a huge change maker and represents new, fresh blood, fresh ideas, a break with the status quo. That's just not going to happen. The undecideds will break toward us and we will win.
You got 11 days to do it. As a bystander, it's certainly fascinating to watch all of this indeed. Thank you so much. Good to have you here, Kellyanne.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me. Take care.